Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. Sulman Rahim here, Messenger of the Covenant, breaker of the seven seals. Welcome. Let's slay some demons. This is critical analytics. Another session of war talk. So, sisters and brothers, we're going to talk about the abomination of desolation. So we'll talk about that's the primary subject from now until it occurs, which will be in a few days. Abomination of desolation. What is the abomination of desolation? It's an event that's very devastating, that should not, cannot, supposed to not ever happen. That's what we're told. It's something that is akin to saying that the sun will rise in the west tomorrow. See, that's not going to happen. That can't happen. It's akin to that, because we're told in the scriptures. See, the scriptures surround. There's few things. Put it this way: the scriptures are based on one specific thing. That's the children of Israel and the covenant of Abraham. The Abrahamic covenant. When you boil it all down, it's all based on that. All the scriptures, including the Quran, is all based on that. The experience, the history, the life of the children of Israel. Now, who are the children of Israel? That's the question. Because we're told that the people over there in the Middle East that's occupying what used to be called Palestine are the Israel. They are Israel. But there's much confusion concerning that. Much confusion. Because for the last 2,000 years, the Christians, up until 1948, right, went with Jesus on that one, said, no, you're not the children of Israel. I mean, they didn't go, someone went that far, others went to the point where they said, well, maybe you might be, but the covenant doesn't apply to you anymore. The covenant has been abrogated because you didn't follow Jesus. And so that covenant, right, that contract has been transferred over to the Europeans. Now they're the spiritual seed of Abraham. They went with that for 2,000 years. And they oppressed, they terrorized, they slaughtered those people who call themselves Jews, as it says in Revelation, those who call themselves Jews are not. And who is calling themselves Jews? There's only two people on the planet calling themselves Jews. That's them and us. So one of us is truthful and one of us is lying. So when you have a situation where he says, she says, right? Well, bring out the evidence. You have any evidence and videos, you have any history, you have anything? That's the question. Because they're saying that they are. But see, the complication there is what? See? Because no matter who is, according to the Christians, right? It doesn't matter, because whoever, no matter which one it is, they don't have the covenant anymore, because now it's been transferred to them. So it doesn't matter from their point of view. Up to 1948, it didn't matter. So they didn't care who was saying, who's making that claim. See? And just a little segue here, right? The lessons tell us that Christianity is only 551 years old. And people say, how is that? That doesn't make any sense. You don't know what he's talking about. Because Christianity is around 2,000 years. See, that's because you don't understand. Because Christianity is only 551 years old. Before they had Catholicism, that wasn't Christianity. They was worshiping the Pope. See, there was idolaters. See, they was worshiping statues. And the Pope was, right, they was worshiping the Pope. And they broke away from that 551 years old, 551 years ago, and so-called Protestant movement started by this person called Martin Luther. Not about your Martin Luther King that you love so much. No, a person called Martin Luther King. Martin Luther, right, started the Protestant movement, which means protesters, because they protested the Catholic Church, and they started following the scriptures according to their understanding, as opposed to what the Pope was telling the scriptures meant. So Christianity is only 551 years old. But the Christians say the covenant refers to them. And they look at America as the promised land. See, everything's all backwards, upside down. So from their point of view, it doesn't matter who's making that claim. See, until 1948. So you got to understand this. It was immaterial. It didn't matter up until 1948. Then it mattered. Into the 40s, it began to matter because at the 40s, right, they came up with this thing called a final solution. And then this Christian world decided just get rid of all those people that claim they're Jews. Just get rid of all of them. And that's what the Nazis were doing over Germany. They was in the process of doing that. They called it the final solution. That's get rid of them. That's the end of that, right? And then Elijah Muhammad stepped up with evidence and a valid claim, saying, no, we are the true seed of Abraham. And that became a problem because we had evidence. See, the dead body was right here. You say, well, the evidence right there, the body's laying around the floor. We got 400 years of history, exactly like it says. See? Everything that is said about that covenant applied to us, and we could show proof of it. False Israel could not show proof of it, none of it. That was a problem. Because they could not have people thinking that we the true seed of Abraham, because it became a problem then. Because if we true seed Abraham, right? See, that stuff about them being transferred from the so-called Jews to the Europeans was out the window because Jesus was talking about those people who claimed they was Jews back then. We're talking about us. So that threw that out the window. Plus, now if we're the true seed of Abraham, then they're not only not the spiritual seed of Abraham, but they're devils who've been oppressing us for 400 years, who will incur God's wrath and be destroyed. You see, that was the problem. So they had to backtrack and revise and throw something together real quick. See, the thing is, they couldn't clean up 100%. But what they did, it says they had to, because we had the evidence. They had to take and destroy our evidence. They had to take and destroy our narrative. In other words, knock that down, hide the evidence, whatever, destroy the evidence. Because if that was true, all that, yes, they was talking about failed, just failed. See, they did spiritually Abraham, right? See? And that this is the promised land. And that we was Ham, seed of the descendants of Shem, who was cursed to be slaves forever. All that stuff just went out the window, failed. So they wasn't justified anymore. Because if that was true, that we was then slaving us didn't mean anything, because God said that's what they were doing God's will. And taking America and genocide, that didn't matter because this was the promised land, the land promised to them. They was doing God's will. And getting rid of false Israel, that was no problem because, hey, right? See, they was the ones that Jesus said their father was the devil. So all the things they was doing was justified. They was justified. They was angels. So it wasn't that thing they was doing was wrong. So they could walk around holy, smiling, halos on their head. Because all they was doing, according to the sealed Bible, was justified. But if we was the true seed of Abraham, they was not justified, and furthermore, they were evil devils, exactly like Elijah Muhammad said they are, right? Doomed for destruction, beasts who treat us like beasts. Because how could they treat us? If how can a beast treat? How can a dog treat you other than the way a dog acts, right? So they treat us like beasts because they are beasts. How they don't have, they know no other way to treat people. In fact, when they was locked up in Europe for 1,000 years, they treat each other like beasts. Wolves treat each other like wolves. Lions treat each other like lions. See, they treat everybody else like lions. That's what they treat according to their nature. So they treat us like beasts because they are beasts, as the Quran says. So that threw everything into a spin. See, everything got confused. Oh man! So he had to come with a narrative. He had to backtrack. See, put some tape and glue or something on, glue something together, because they just couldn't have that idea that we the true seed of Abraham. So therefore, they went backtrack and said, "Oh no, the treaty wasn't abrogated." All the Christians didn't go along with that because you have a lot of them right now don't go along with that. See, but they don't want to talk about the other part either. But they don't want to admit that because they know that if they are, then they're not the spiritual seed of Abraham, and they got all the things I just mentioned. But see, they kind of like they dismiss that like it's like some brain fart, right? So you don't want to talk about that part. That's critical race theory. All kind. Don't talk about that part. See, because that goes with all of that. But they don't want to. But they don't want to deny. They don't want to accept the fact that false Israel could be Israel, because that means, right, that all things I said follows. So they don't want to go along that path, because if that's the case, right, that the covenant applies to them, then they're the evil and all that stuff that goes with it. So they said, no, we still spiritual. Because remember, we still because if the covenant still applies to them that they claim as Israel, then they're not spiritual Abraham. That means all the stuff that they did was evil. So a lot of Christians ain't going along with that, but most of them are going along with it. Even the black Christians, they're going along with it. So they came up and said, okay, you are a true seed of Abraham. Covenant still applies to you. And they try to make the covenant happen. They try to fulfill the covenant by taking and financing, right, and financing and supporting and backing, right, militarily, false Israel's taking over Palestine, calling it the return. And read the scriptures carefully. It said the first return would be by the king of Persia. See, Daniel is sealed. And they're talking about, the war of Persia. See, you understand? When they're talking about Persia and Daniel, they're talking about America. See? But anyway, so they had to put that together to say, they're fulfilling the covenant. See, because fulfilling the return, they have to be fulfilling the covenant. It means they have to be the true seed. That means the Europeans are not the spiritual seed. Like I said, the Christian preachers, the white and black, they kind of like get the brain far on that one, because logically what goes along follows. But it doesn't matter, you understand, as far as their congregations go, because they can tell the congregation anyway, anything, because you cannot debate with those people. If you believe that angels fly around, right, with wings, and they go from one end of the universe flying through space in an instant with just wings, and you believe in people dying and going to heaven, and you believe in angels that you can't see, some gods you can't see, and and devils, and you believe in all that kind of stuff that you can't prove, then you can tell them anything. And you can't argue with those people. Don't waste time arguing with people. Because the only way you can argue with somebody, you have to have a foundation, something that's real, that you can break, some mathematical fact that you can both work from, that you both agree on. But if they in some superstitious, some kind of belief matrix, you can argue with them. Why waste time? They won't even agree that 1 + 1 = 2. So why are you going to argue with them? You can't. It's impossible. You have to have a foundation that you both agree on. And then you can argue the point. But you can argue with them. I don't waste time arguing with these Christians. Because if you believe that kind of nonsense, right, then you believe anything. And so that's why the Christian preachers can tell them all that kind of stuff. See, because they don't go and check. And they say, we just have to have faith and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go into too much. I'm not going into detail with that. But what I'm saying is that now they're in a conundrum. See, in a conundrum. See, confused. Because now they have to accept the day that you see Abraham, but they're not, which means the Europeans are